final Friday Forum of the semester, guys. Today we're honored to have a board member, Alain Sylvain of Sylvain Labs, kind of a tongue twister. He's had an extremely prolific career in strategy. He worked at New Mother, Red Scout, and so who better to introduce him than a copywriter who's never had a Kaylee class. Beyond that, I'm sure he has a lot to say that you totally take away from. So without further ado, please welcome Alain Sylvain.
What's up? How are you guys? How are you? You good? Is this mandatory? I'm sure you're riveted. I'm so hyped to be here. This is so cool. I have so much to say. I brought people with me. We did all sorts of preparation for this. Hashtag Sylvain Labs. That's all I gotta say. Before I start, and Katie, thanks for the intro, and it's definitely something that I deal with every so often. Is my name. It's spelled A-L-A-I-N, and it's a complicated name, and as a branding person, it's always really hard to kind of pronounce my name. There are different ways. Let me do that again. There are different ways to pronounce my name, just for your benefit. Okay, there's this. Alan, which is like Anglo-Saxon, is like Alan. And then there's, wait, let me go back. I want you really to get, this is super important. Elaine, which is like the phonetic way to pronounce the name, and then the French way, which is the way it's supposed to be pronounced.
Alain.
You like how I picked a woman's voice for that one? It's like, but just that's the way it's pronounced. This was the invite that was sent the last time I did Friday Forum. It was awesome because no one really knew me very well at the school at the time. So and someone asked for a picture, and I was like, let me see if they'll actually run this picture. And they did, and it was sent around the school. Do I need a mic or something?
No,
Oh yeah, thanks. They went around the school, and I actually did Friday Forum. This was 2009. I did Friday Forum in 2005. I was like barely knew what I was talking about, but I was somehow invited. And then they asked me back in 2009. It's been 7 years since I'm back again. What's up with that? I hope it's not another 7 years. So I'm involved in the school. I'm on the board. I've been on the board for a few years now. I'm super excited about the university. We have 7 Brand Center students at Sylvain Labs right now, Brand Center alum. We work with, just clap louder, Ashley. And we work with a lot of Brand Center people all the time. We've interned. A lot of our clients actually are people that we've met in rooms like this. I have a client right now that I met at Friday Forum 2009, so it's like an enduring sort of relationship. Last time I did it, I interviewed someone from Brand Center, and I was like, I'm doing Friday Forum. What do you think I should do? What do you think I should talk about? And she prepared this thing, and she sent it to me. It was like, these are the 10 things you should keep in mind when you do Friday Forum. And she sent this to me 7 or so years ago, and I thought I'd bring it back because to really help guide what this presentation is going to be, what this talk is going to be. I thought it was really good. She's like, tell your story, tell a Red Scout story. That's where I used to work. Talk about branding, appeal to everyone. And that's kind of what you're going to see today. Okay, so bear with us. Okay, this is going to be a meandering, confusing. There's no single thread. We're going to talk about tons of different shit. We're going to talk about work. I'm going to show you a little bit about Sylvain Labs and talk about the world. We're going to talk about Brand Center, what happens after Brand Center. Oh yeah, this is the last time I talked.
You may recognize the
What's up, guys? What's happening? That was on purpose. How you guys doing? Okay, this is good. It's Friday. Is this mandatory? Do you have to do this? Do you want to be here? You can skip it. I did that on purpose. I wanted to see if that would play. Now the thing was, last time I talked to Peter, do you remember? And you guys a few of you were there last time. And I thought it was a really good talk. We had like a lot of energy, and I felt really good afterwards. I got some really good vibes afterwards. And I was like, you know what, let me buy pizza for the school. That would be so cool. So we bought pizza for the whole school. And the only thing people remember about my last Friday Forum speech is the pizza. Anyway, so that's that. So let's talk about today and where we're keep going, Joey. What we're going to do today. I want to tell you a bit about my story. That was something that I was told about. Is like tell your story, tell where you've been and where where you come from. My family's from Haiti. I was born in New York. They immigrated to Haiti in the late 60s. I'm still very involved in Haiti. I was just there 3 weeks ago. It's still a very important part of who I am. I just want you to know that, just so you have some background. I grew up in Queens in the 80s. This is a photo I took when no, I didn't take it. I'm just but Queens and New York in the 80s and the early 90s was super intense, and it's done so much to shape who I am and my tastes. I want you to know that. And then I went to a lot of school. I went to the United Nations International School when I was growing up, so I really had the chance to see a lot of different places. My parents worked for the United Nations, so we got the chance to learn different languages and travel the world. It was like an absolute privilege. And then I went to college. I went to Vassar College, and I studied politics, Africana studies also. And then I went to graduate school, and I got a double master's. I went to the business school and the international affairs school at Columbia. And I left that situation and really, I forgot to mention this. This is important. This is an important part of understanding who I am. I'm obsessed with culture. I'm obsessed with music. I play music. I was a professional DJ. I love music. I had a radio show. I'm obsessed with the arts and culture. It's a huge part of who I am. I'm really promiscuous in my taste. I try to be, at least. Anyway, that's an important part of who I am. Oh, go back, Joey. Go back home. You know what I want to play for you? This song I made in like 1999. Just to say that, and I did this while I was at grad school, and hopefully you're still making shit and doing stuff. This is a song I made. Go ahead. I took it from the West Side Story. I was obsessed with West Side Story, the musical, the soundtrack. Yeah, it's amazing.
Feel free to dance.
I will do that. I'll do that. I was about to. Anyway, I ended up working at a bunch of different agencies. I started out at SSNK. Do you guys know that agency? Shepperson, Stern, and Kaminsky. They're more kind of strategic, focused, they started as a political consulting sort of company, which is why I went there. And while I was there, it evolved. It became more of a advertising agency. And they worked on Obama and a lot of other really cool things. And by the time I left there, I was kind of perceived more as a planner, as a strategist, even though I still really didn't know what planning was or meant. But I bounced around at a couple other agencies. I spent a really brief time at Wyden. I worked at Martin in New York. I was down here a lot, which is how I became acquainted with this school. And that was an amazing experience. I'm still very close to the people there. What an amazing agency. Keep going. But I have to say, something unlocked when I landed at Mother in 2003, 2004. And this is Mother's office in New York. And it was a different, Mother today is a different place, as a lot of you know. It's like a couple hundred people. They do a lot of big TV work. At the time, we were maybe 8 people, and we had one table on Bond Street downtown, and we did just random, interesting, creative projects. That's all it was, and I found my home. Like that culture and that agency really reflected who I was as a person, which is one thing I would leave for you as you think about where you want to work, is try to work in places that reflect who you really are and you can kind of identify with. And Mother was that for me, and I was there for almost 4.5 years, really helping build sort of that agency from the ground up. And I worked in strategy, I led strategy there, and I'm really proud of the work that we did there. But I was frustrated, and maybe, and this is a different time, by the way. This is a different time. I was frustrated because the company was a creative juggernaut, and I love that, and I contributed to that. But strategy wasn't at the heart of what that company was selling. Clients were going there for creative excellence. They weren't necessarily going there for strategy. And I felt like I was hiding as a strategist. I was like, I love it here, and I'm connected to these people, but I really want to challenge myself, and I want to try to see if I'm really good at what I can do. So I knew I wanted to leave that creative agency space and work for a strategy consulting situation. And I ended up working at Red Scout. I was the managing director at Red Scout. I was there for a year, and I loved the sort of challenges that I was confronted with at Red Scout, like innovation challenges, brand strategy challenges, insight challenges. They were great, but I really, really missed the culture and creative spirit of Mother. I fucking loved Mother. I identified with Mother. I still identify with Mother. And while the work at Red Scout was great, it wasn't kind of what I talked about. It's like it really reflected who I was and the sort of vibe that I wanted to be around. You can go back 2 slides. You can actually tell that from the pictures in a way. There's this and there's that. So then So what I noticed was, I love to work. And this was like this is a professional slacker. I was like, I love to work. I just hate jobs. I hated the box. I loved hustling and getting shit done and building things, but I hated the traditional sort of job. And that was reflected in my everyday life. This is a Halloween costume I made for my kids this past October. This is Cleo, she's 2, and I converted her stroller into a Millennium Falcon. It was awesome, and my boys were stormtroopers, and it was great. We were all around Brooklyn, and we got like a lot of people were following us, tweeting about us. But I bring that up to say, like, I love to work. I love to work when it's something I care about and something I'm passionate about, which changes the nature of what a job can be or what job searching should be. And that's why we kind of started Sylvan Labs. It's like, can you create a workplace that's kind of that? It's like what you really want to do, what you're really motivated, and who you really, really are. Go ahead. So I love Mother. I was obsessed with Mother, the creative culture, the casual spirit, the energy. We were family. And I knew I wanted to create something new. So I took that, but I also love the work. I was like, Red Scout has got the right sort of perspective around assignments and how to get the rigor behind assignments, the discipline, and really a great organization when it comes to the caliber of the quality of challenge that they face. So I took the creative spirit of Mother with the Red Scout, and I was like, well, let's to the power of swag, like let's give it some real edge, let's give it some real cultural savviness, let's make it truly on the ground and really in touch with how people really behave. I was like the creative spirit plus the strategic rigor to the power of swag, but minus, or divided by some of the ego that I found in both of those organizations. Mother felt very entitled around creativity, and Red Scout felt very entitled around strategy. And I thought, why can't we have an organization that's just a little bit more human? Like, what's wrong with that? Like, what's wrong with that? And so that's what Sylvan Labs is. Is that fair, guys? I don't know. Mother times Red Scout times power of swag divided by ego, Sylvan Labs. So let me tell you a little bit about Sylvan Labs right now. You can keep going, Joseph. Do you guys know about the company, or no? Nothing? Nothing? A little bit, yeah. So we're a strategy consulting company. We do mostly strategy. Innovation is a big part of what we do. And innovation is a super cliche term. Like, what does that mean? Like, it's a throwaway term. Everyone says that. So I wanted to talk a little bit about why is innovation important to me? Why is innovation important to what this company sells? And why is it, in a way, all the rage in this industry? And I think it matters. You have to start with perspective. Like, where do you start with that question? And for me, I always, like in everything I do, I take a big step back. And I think about the universe, and I think about how there are thousands of galaxies and so many unknowns and so many questions about where we are and where we've been. Keep going, Joseph. And here we are on this planet that's been so generous to us and it's spawned life, and it's spawned all sorts of species in the water and in the air. And it's spawned humanity that's come together and formed generations of civilizations that can build things and make things and do kind of unbelievable things together. And to keep itself alive, there's been you have to adopt a system of governance in a way, and that's what capitalism is, and that's what the Industrial Revolution kind of spawned. And that's proven the importance of business. Bear with me, because I'm totally going somewhere. So industry is important. And then you think about what runs businesses, which again, in this bigger context, is important to the livelihood of human civilization. What are the important questions that businesses face? There are tons of them. There's like, where do we do with our money? Where do we put our money? It's accounting, and financing is super important. Manufacturing, how do we build things from point A to point B? Maybe in the digital era, what does that look like? It's thinking about things like distribution and logistics. How do we move things from point A to point B? These are big, complex questions that organizations and businesses deal with. How do we stay competitive in this digital era? How do we think about what labor means and how automated technologies and virtual technologies can enhance what we currently do? What I was noticing when I was working is that clients were asking really these big questions. These really big questions. They were asking things like, saying things like, we need to change. Where do we start? We can't keep up. We're making less money. What do people even want? We're getting killed. We could have done that. It doesn't fit in our process. Yet, the questions that I found we were faced on the advertising side or agency side, even in the modern agency side, was still very limited to how do we sell it, or how do we convince people to buy it? Like, it's about perspective. It's about perspective. Take a big step back about how civilization is built, what capitalism means, and what businesses are confronted with. What we need as human beings, like the human need is super important. I don't really want to think about these very basic things of how do we motivate someone to trigger a decision. Keep going. And so I noticed that there were many other companies kind of thinking about it. Here are just a few. There are some companies that I respect that were really playing in this bigger zone around these bigger problems. And that's why I love this idea of creative problem solving. It's absolutely how we operate and think at Sylvian Labs. And this is actually, the next slide is a slide from our creds deck, where this is how we talk about very much the same thing. We say Sylvian Labs is really a place where we apply our imagination. Like, we're all imaginative people. We're all human beings. Human beings are inherently creative. What we do is we just apply our imagination to complex business problems. So people come to us with a question about an innovation question or a brand question or really any question, and we just dream solutions. And it's really a great privilege. And what's interesting, meanwhile, as all this is happening, and I think you guys all know this, there is sort of a crisis in the world of advertising. There's a crisis, right? Everyone's freaking out about how people are consuming media. This was a really interesting, did you guys see this thing on the upper right? This was an article that was published recently about how ad agencies suffer talent loss. LinkedIn saw in 2015 that there was a 25% decline in the amount of people that that work in advertising agencies. 25%. That's like huge. So either people are legitimately leaving the advertising agency, which is happening, or people are starting to identify themselves differently. So there's sort of a crisis, not unlike you might see in other industries, the way Airbnb completely disrupted the hospitality industry, or Uber completely disrupted taxi and limousine. There's sort of a moment in advertising right now where there's some room for some legitimate disruption, there's some room for some legitimate change. And I'd like to think Sylvian Labs is playing a part in really changing how that industry is beginning to perceive itself, because we're not shy about coming from more of an advertising place, but we apply those same skills that we learn in these advertising contexts to other places, because they work. Like the shit you're learning here around craft of creative or insight or making persuasive arguments, that kills. It's valuable in the world in general. And what's encouraging is that the right advertising agencies, the right traditional advertising agencies are starting to notice this and invest in this. And they're changing, legitimately changing to be disruptors of their own industry. Now, sometimes when I say this, and I've written some things out there, and it freaks people out. Like within the industry, they're like, "What are you doing, man?" Like, and they ask questions like this, but who will make the ads? Like, the ads need to be made. Like, what's going to happen to the ads? The ads. There's like this real protective, puritanical sort of provincial perspective about, those were all P words, about the industry. And what's interesting is that the only people that care about this sort of polemic talk are people in the industry of advertising. People beyond the industry don't care. They're not wondering, like, how is advertising changing? It's only people within advertising that are trying to protect the status quo that are really afraid of this sort of talk. My clients who work in innovation and business development and marketing, they're not thinking about what's the difference between a creative and a strategist. They're not losing sleep about that. They're not thinking about what is a creative technologist. These are questions that I know we must confront in the industry all the time. Like, what is a creative technologist? But our clients, they don't. They're dealing with those bigger questions that I showed you. So, I guess what I'm saying is the way we approach what we do is really from the perspective of the outside world. We certainly try to broaden our perspective beyond the industry space or the agency space. Now, the irony of all of this, like here I am saying we want to disrupt the space and so on, we're starting to get recognized by the industry as this. We got a Small Agency of the Year Northeast, which is such a shitty award now that I play it back. It's like, it's not agency. First of all, it's agency, and It's small agency, and it's like Northeast. Which, by the way, we don't have any regional clients. We're like, all of our work is, so, but anyway, we were recognized for that, and that was really kind of a big deal, considering we were a small group of people. But it's encouraging to see that the agencies is changing. Keep going. So I know for any forum, you're not supposed to go through credits. I know this because I've done it. I've talked to people. You don't want to just play back to people. This is what we've done. This is what we've done. But because I'm talking about innovation, and because I think we're talking about a different sort of service in this world, I want to quickly show you some of our work, okay? And I've never done this before at a Friday Forum before, but I want you to see so you can kind of compare it to the sort of work and challenges you're seeing in other places. This is how we talk about our services. We talk about innovation, which is, the future of the product experience. We talk about brand strategy, what does the brand stand for, and we also do some management consulting. So we help write business plans, and we think about investor presentations and things like that. Keep going. This is our client list. If anyone has a question, I'd be happy to answer some of that. We work really hard in working with best-in-class companies. We work with Google and Uniqlo and Nike. And what's cool about our client list that I'm really proud of is that we have 100% client retention. So 100%. So everyone that's ever worked with us at Sylvane Labs have come back for a second project, every single time. So we're really, really proud of that, and hopefully no one fucks it up. So this is our office downtown. We're on 4th Street and Lafayette, right near the Astro Wine Building. You guys are welcome to come visit anytime. Like I said, we have, did I say this? We have 7 Brand Center students, and you can see a couple in here. We're super fast people. And then we have a couple that this is so pathetic compared to the previous slide, but we have an office in Richmond. Did you guys know this? Did you guys know we have an office in Richmond? We have a bureau. We have a bureau in Richmond at East Land's End. Is that what it's called? The Eastern Land Collective, which is a Brand Center alum that started this co-working space, and we have 3 desks there. And we also have an office in Amsterdam, which we haven't been able to shoot a video for. But it's a small operation in Amsterdam. We're trying to grow in Europe, trying to do more global work. And I wanted to show you this again, just on the point about innovation, okay? Just so you understood where our sort of assignments fit. So when you look at other brand consultants or innovation consultants or agencies, maybe you think about them along the spectrum. Maybe this helps, okay? Where on the left side, you have insight mining. So these are assignments that are really about what do people feel. It's like research assignments. And that, of course, there's a lot of disruption in the research space. So an assignment here might be how do people feel about online dating? Or how do people interact with their car? What are the opportunities for connected car innovation? The next is what we call opportunity definition, where we begin to see that there's some interesting things in a particular space and we put a name to it. So maybe we'll see there's something really interesting about it. We're working in alcohol or spirits, and we'll say people really, status. Status is something people really want. We learned in the research that status is like an opportunity area around status. Like, trying to have a badge and make yourself look better. And then we'll do ideation. We do hardcore creative ideation. We'll develop product ideas. Okay, status is important. Okay, so maybe we think about a beverage that is in itself a badge of something. Maybe we create digital tools that people can then use to promote their own standing. Maybe we create a gaming system, so on and so on. We do tons of ideation, and we do that in a lot of different ways. We have a lot of different tools. We've actually worked with Brand Center students before on this. And then the next step is thinking about how do you develop that idea. So we have this product concept, and what does it look like? How should it be named? Should we prototype it? Can we do wireframing? Like, how does it begin to look and feel? And then we start thinking about go-to-market. Then we start thinking about, okay, so how's it positioned in the world? Like, what is its unique position in the world? And then how does it truly get activated through marketing or advertising or digital? So we do work along the spectrum. Sometimes we have assignments that are across the whole thing. Sometimes we have assignments that are vertically. So is that helpful? I wanted to leave you with something that maybe was helpful. All right, some quick assignments that we did. We got involved in Anheuser-Busch really early on. We helped develop this thing called Bud Light Platinum. Do you guys know it?
You're welcome.
We really helped. We developed it. We were like a higher alcohol premium version of Bud Light. We saw there was an opportunity after tons of research, and it ended up becoming one of the fastest growing beers of all time. And we're super proud of that. we've also done work, this is a project we're working on right now with Google. It's Project Jacquard. We're working out of Mountain View on a new technology, helping them think of a product experience around this new yarn-based technology. Super cool. Keep going, Bruce. We helped, and Tristan's here, right? What's up, Tristan? What's up, man? We worked with the Creative Lab, and we have a really long relationship with, and I know Kevin, who is an executive creative director of the Creative Lab because of Brand Center. And we helped them through this entire project, the Be Together Not the Same campaign last year. We helped develop the strategy and the inside work. And we're still very close to those guys. Keep going. This is a research project that, the beginnings of an innovation project that Ben and Joey led. Ben and Joey are here, by the way, which I'll talk about in a second. They went all over the world and talked to people about their car. And GM knows the driverless car is coming. How do we prepare consumers for the driverless car? That's our assignment. It's about connected car technology. So we spoke to people all over the world, better understood how they interact with their car. We also do a bunch of our own shit. We helped create a line of headphones called Master and Dynamic, which are fantastic. It's like the smartest business move we've ever made. And they're in the Apple Store. They're doing really well. They're high-end headphones. We helped name it, develop it, conceive it, the whole business development strategy. We also developed a line of hot sauce called Same Same But Different that was less successful than the headphones, it's safe to say. But we made a bunch of random content for it. It was super fun. Bam. Keep going. This is a mobile game that we're actually helping launch in the next few months called Main Street. It's a former intern at our company is developing this thing, and we're helping him do it. It's super cool. You're supposed to, well, whatever. You guys can look it up later. Oh yeah, you get the gist. You're supposed to like make sure the kids can cross, and then if they it's like super dark, and it's super cool. They put all this like really cool game functionality in it. You get like the UFO comes in. It's like the whole thing happens. Keep going. We made a documentary called InstaFame, which we did this a couple of years ago now.
Almost anything you can do, you can get a positive.
And Joey led that. That was like Joey had this idea of like, maybe we should do, what's up with these young kids, these like 15-year-old kids with like 1 million followers, like who've done nothing? Like what's up? Like, what does that do? Like what does that mean for who they are? And we were like, let's go ask some people, and they talked to some psychologists and some experts on fame. And we brought a camera, and we ended up shooting a short documentary. We did this completely by ourselves because we were curious. We've since created another documentary that we hope to release really soon. And so now I want you guys to meet Ben and Joey. Ben and Joey, they're my boos. Ben and Joey. I met Ben and Joey at the board meeting in 2009. I was down at the board meeting. It was like the recession was crazy. Like Brand Center students were desperate for jobs. I met them at drinks, and I just completely connected with them. I really liked them, and they said that they had this, they had a content idea, which I think they'll talk about. And I was like, let me help you, and we met. I was at Red Scout at the time. We met, and I helped them to try to develop this thing. But the more I spent time with them, I was like, I really like these guys, and I told them, I was like, I'm thinking about starting my own thing. Would you guys be willing to leave your jobs and work with me? And they played coy at first, but it turns out they were desperate as hell, and they took the job. But before I hand it over to the boy band known as Ben and Joey, I've asked them to talk to you about things that they've learned since they've been in Brand Center. So they graduated in 2009. So here's they're going to play back some things that they've seen in the world, things that they've learned. And to help set the stage for that, we did a survey. Did you guys take the survey we sent out? Who took the survey? You guys are lying. Not that many people took the survey. No, maybe not. We did this last time. I did it last time I was here. I did a survey. I talked to art students, business school students, and we compared Brand Center to those two, and it was super interesting to see the differences. One of the big findings there was that Brand Center students were twice as likely to kiss strangers in public. It was like, I was like, wow, that's kind of cool. So we thought we would do it again. So you guys took this survey. We also had, we had over 100 we had like 150 current students take the survey, right? We had about the same amount of alum take the survey. We also had students from other schools here take the survey. We didn't have a ton of responses there, so we couldn't play back some of that stuff. So again, to make the point about what you learn after you leave Brand Center, we're going to compare really quickly using data, using science, the difference between a Brand Center student and an alum, a Brand Center alum. So how are you going to change is the question. How using data, science, how are you going to leave? How are you going to change? How will you change, right? So one thing is, if you look at before and after Brand Center, you'll have more time and less fun. This is true. This is data. Okay. What is the biggest enemy in your day? Brand Center students are more likely to say time is your biggest enemy. I just don't have enough time to get the stuff done. When you leave, what's your biggest enemy? Boredom. You don't know what to do with your time. That to me is super interesting. That it's tough now, but it's going to get boring later. I don't know. Keep going. You don't exercise. You don't take care of yourselves in the school. What's up with that? You guys got to take care of yourselves. It's not until after you leave that you're really going to begin to invest in yourself. We had this question in the survey around confessions, and a lot of them were kind of sad, kind of depressing. We didn't want to play them back to you, but some of them, right? I mean, we were going to play. They were kind of sad, but a couple of them were about this, like I don't have the chance to take care of myself, which was not even a confession. I don't even know. Keep going. You also become more vain. When you leave the school, you will be more self-obsessed. This is data, this is science, right? So we asked if you could be on any of these reality shows, which one would you be? Students are into Shark Tank. They have ideas, entrepreneurial spirit. I want to build something. Alum or like American Idol. I want to be on stage. I want to be famous. But how about this question? Which topics do you post most about on social media? The alum are like posting themselves. They're all about themselves. You guys have some humility. You're more likely, or not even more likely to talk about friends and family. But something changes. Maybe your perspective about yourself and where you are in the world changes. And what's interesting is you will like advertising less. This was the biggest delta in the entire study. Like, look at the amount of alum that don't like advertising after they leave. It's something happens when you're confronted with the reality of either traditional advertising agencies or traditional clients or jobs or whatever it is where you're confronted with that coined term. Anyway, I want to now pass it to Ben and Joy. And I'm going to beat this image here. Ben and Joy. So go for it, guys. Yeah, do it. Make it happen.
It's a great intro.
Great intro.
Real quick.
Yeah.
Oh, this is super loud. Do I have a volume knob? Oh, you're just going to have to hear me. So, the first thing to start off with right out of the gate is most advice sucks. And we came back and the idea was to come in and start to talk about what we've learned since we were in school and what might be valuable. We were asking ourselves, what would we have wanted to hear when we were in your seat, a month from being fully unemployed and worried about paying bills. But we realized that most advice sucks because it's 90% of the articles you read on the internet have zero context. They're not relevant to your situation. They don't really care about what you're doing. And so we're going to try and just give some pro tips that we've learned by making a lot of mistakes over the years.
And we are obviously professional.
I don't think your mic's on.
No.
Pro tip.
Hello. We are professionals. And as you can see from our attire here, but we're, like you said, we're not necessarily trying to, these are things that we've learned, we don't know. We really don't know that much. It actually comes back later but we're just trying to tell you some of the things that we've learned over the course of the past 6 or so years.
Our goal was to come out of this not looking like douchebags. So you can let us know at the end.
There are generally 3 sections here. We're going to talk about getting a job to a degree, how do you get ahead once you get a job, how do you maximize the opportunity that you have, and then you're a human, you have life, enjoy that life. How can you do that while you have a job and while you're trying to get ahead?
fight boredom?
First, in on getting a job, is be human. Right? We are all human beings. We are unique, I like to think, to a degree. And that's, I think, the most important asset you have. It's really important to come across when you're trying to get a job as a human. Go to the next slide. These are a couple emails that we have received over the past few years that, do they pass the Turing test? Is this a robot or is this a human? They're all the same. We don't always get emails like this, but this happens. And this is
A lot.
Yeah.
Not just from here, these are just
Right.
good examples.
Right. But it's important in this initial interaction to show who you are, to show that you're a human, to show that you're unique. And it doesn't have to be, a 10-page email. It can be this short, but it just has some flair, some personality to it.
Yeah, I mean, there's the cliche that people hire people, right? I mean, it's a cliche because it's true. And when you're writing someone an email, once you're in a job, you're getting hundreds of emails every day, and you have to stand out not just among other people who are trying to get jobs. You have to, stand out from Janice in accounting. And if you're just writing someone an email about yourself, you don't know anything about them, you're not saying anything interesting, it's really easy to be deleted. And there's a lot of simple pro tips in here. Don't copy and paste. It always comes back to bite you. There's going to be some mistake in there. Write an email. Get the company's name right. We talked to someone who was doing internships, and half of the interns had put a typo into the email saying the company's name misspelled, and she just deleted those ones. So, I mean, it's really basic, but just take the time to write a good email. I mean, the power of a well-written email can take you a long way. I think part of the reason we have, we worked with Alen to start this company is because you took the time to talk to someone like a human being. You're not a snowflake. I think when we were coming into this, especially when you're in school and you're coming out of university and you're kind of programmed to do well on tests and you get these percentages back and you know how well you perform against other people and you're like, I'm in the 99th percentile, it becomes this badge and you think that that's the thing that you're trading on. And the truth is, even if you're 1 in a million, there's 7,000 of you on Earth, right? And if you're in the 99th percentile, that means that, in this city, there are thousands of you. And so, you have to start to realize that going in and being this kind of super special unicorn is not the objective. The objective is to go in and be someone who can contribute, who can add value, and kind of let this idea that you are going to be a magical creature that someone desperately wants in their agency or their company or whatever it is you're going to do. Because the truth is, you're replaceable. And I mean this in the most honest way possible. I mean, we were having a conversation recently, Alen and Ben and I, about, at this point, the company is 20 plus people big, and if any one of us left, the company would continue rolling along. It's its own thing now, and as much as we even contribute to the company's success, it doesn't matter anymore. And so going in and trying to be this special thing that people can't replace, it shouldn't be the objective. It should be to go in and be a good person, and I mean that in both contexts that you could take that. I mean, do good work and invest yourself and be passionate about the work that you're doing, but I also mean just be a person that people want to be around, because that makes other people do good work, and that's always going to be more successful than a snowflake, right? A snowflake does nothing on the bottom line when you're doing your taxes at the end of the year. It does nothing to get you a promotion, but contributing to making more money, because this is capitalism, will. So, plumbers have leaky pipes. So, you end up talking to a lot of people, and this is something we talk about later, and people ask when they're trying to break in, or someone's doing one thing, and they'll come to us and ask, how do I get into strategy? Or they work in advertising and they want to do innovation, or whatever it is, and they're kind of completely removed from the process. Like getting a job is some kind of magical experience that is distinct from anything else that they've ever done in the world. And the idea here is that if you're a strategist, be strategic in how you get a job. It's not rocket science, right? Like if you want to connect with someone in some way, put some thought into a way that you think would be successful. If you're a writer, you should probably be writing the best damn email that anyone has ever received. Or if you're a designer, do something that designers do. But the point is to take the craft that you're learning here and that you've been working on into why you should get a job. I mean, you can write an email saying why you'll demonstrate value to a company, or you could show someone through an experience that they have with you. But it's super basic, but people forget that it's no different than anything else that you would be doing once you had the job.
So this is a flow chart, because we're strategists, of our journey to our first job. So when we came out of school, we actually saw, should this be anonymous?
Sure.
We saw the speaker, the CEO of the company at Friday Forum, and we were like, oh, this is great. This company does exactly what we want to do.
We were also trying to sell ourselves as a strategy team, which was new.
Yeah, and hard at the bottom of the recession. So we saw the Friday Forum, and then we started this chain of interactions, trying to be strategic, trying to write very well-written emails.
They were good.
Over and over again. But part of the point of this is, like, it takes time. It takes a lot of time to get a job, at least it did for us. But we stuck with it, and we kept going through this. We did 2 free projects for them, and then we did freelance for 3 or 4 months before we actually got a job. And throughout the whole process, we tried to be strategic about the communications. We tried to be strategic about what we were doing. We also didn't want to just be strategists. I think there was a lot of creativity to us in a weird way, and we'll talk about it in a second, this side project we did, but we didn't want to just be strategists or planners in the traditional sense, and we wanted to kind of bridge the gap between strategy and creative,
As this flow chart will tell you.
So we started doing things like a stop motion video as a thank you card instead of just writing a thank you card. We did different things to try and show that we were not just your typical strategist, I guess. And it worked, I don't know. But one of the ways that we did that was with Blomit, which was a side project that we started in school with 5 other guys. Tristan was in it, Alex was in it, and a few other guys. And it was basically just creative experimentation. It was every week there would be a topic, and we would just vomit something creative or not onto a website and put it up there. And that was actually something that really, really helped, I think, all of us get jobs.
Yeah, for sure. And none of it was world-changing good. In fact, most of it going back is super cringeworthy. But the process of coming out, especially when you get a job, so much of what gets talked to you about is your book, right? Like, here's your book, this thing is going to get you your job. And all of us, and I mean Tristan included, the work that tends to stand out is the work that is not advertising. And part of this is just because no one likes the person that talks about work outside of work, and you kind of want to start to know what makes someone interesting. I mean, Tristan and I were talking yesterday, and Charles Hodges, who I think came through here and did a Friday Forum also, he said the only job he wanted was at Wyden Kennedy on SportsCenter coming out of school, and he wound up getting that. But the recruiter told him that the only reason she was talking to him was for his non-advertising pieces in his book. That she thought the book was whatever, but the other pieces were really good. And I think it's important to realize that, and this goes back to being human, that you have to be doing things interesting outside of work to be an interesting person.
The magic of embarrassment. It's been shown that acts of embarrassment or being embarrassed actually makes you more trustworthy. You see, if someone stumbles and falls, there's actually a perception in the people that see that person is more trustworthy. It breaks down barriers. Next slide. This is a screen cap of the stop motion video that we made when we were trying to get our first job. And watching it back is like the first 10 seconds. Shut this down, take this off the internet, get this out of here. It is awful, and I'm sure the guys that watched it were just like, this is really terrible. This is so embarrassing. But it made us, I think, more endearing to them, and it actually made them remember us and want to actually bring us in because A, we put forth effort, but also because we put ourselves out there. And you can't be afraid. This is something I struggle with all the time. But you can't be afraid to just put yourself out there. You can't be afraid to be embarrassed. You can't really take yourself too seriously because if you do, you're never going to do anything interesting. You're never going to go anywhere, really.
Yeah, I mean, I think not being precious is kind of part of this. Some of perfectionism is about not being embarrassed of how people will judge you or whatever it is. But I mean, there's always great. I mean, do you guys know Horace and Pete, the new Louis C.K. show that he put out online? I mean, he shot those in 2 days, edited it the following day, and put them online the day after that. It was just, here it is, like, this is what it's going to be. If it's not as perfect as it could be, whatever, it's one take, this is what you get. And you kind of have to be willing to do that in all of these different things because it just makes life more enjoyable than sweating the small stuff. So, getting ahead. I think there's a fear of, this kind of fits with the last thing of being afraid to embarrass yourself, but we always talk about like embracing your imposter complex because that's what makes the work better, right? I think if you talk to people who are so proud of everything that they do and smell their own farts or whatever, you realize that they get super complacent with the work that's coming out, and if you're constantly saying that something isn't good enough is how you're getting better and making more interesting things, and it's also how you don't wind up like someone who did their greatest work and are reliving the glory days. If you're constantly struggling to make the next thing better and more fun, the work gets better. I mean, I don't even like showing work that we did like last month, so. Mojitos are poison. So Ben and I, when we first started the company, like 6 months in, we went to an after work drinks with Alen, and we made the mistake of not eating dinner and drinking mojitos. And you can go to the next slide. This is an email that Ben's wife sent us the next day. The truth is, though, I didn't make it into work until like 12:30 that day. It was the first time we were meeting Alen's dad, who's the COO of the company. I threw up a lot of times. I had a shiner. But I think like there's something about going into new jobs and kind of letting loose and forgetting to reel it in a little bit. And we did it a lot of times, but this one was probably the worst.
Yeah, I think it's just be aware. Self-aware, be intelligent, like, just don't fuck up that bad.
This photo is actually a mug and a notepad at our office.
Yeah, that was awful. This one is important. Okay, there are a couple important ones in here. This is one of them. Your clients aren't stupid. I think it's really easy to think that. And I mean, let's be real, some of them are. Okay. But I think for the most part, they're not, but they just have different priorities, or they have their own priorities, or they know things that you don't know about the organization, or about the category, or whatever it may be. And I think it's really important to work with them to understand what those priorities are, what the imperatives are, what their boss wants from them, or what the 3-year plan is that they're working towards. And then once you understand that, you can then do whatever you want, really, as long as it accomplishes what they want and what they need. And then you can do your, any creative, strategic, far out things you want. But understanding the nuggets of where they're coming from, I think will put them into perspective and really do a service to what you're working on and to yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is like this, I don't know if it's still a prevailing attitude, but when we were here, I think it was a prevailing attitude
That's
that,
the foundation for the CBM track, which I was a CBM, so.
yeah, I mean, the
And
idea that,
it's a great track, it's a great thought, because, educating clients, I'm trying to dig myself out of a hole here. Educating clients is a good thing. But
but, I mean, you realize, you realize when you get out and if you're paying attention that it's just a different set of priorities, and the people who rise up, and it's not just for people who are working on the business side of things. I mean, the creatives that I know that have been super successful and rose to creative director really fast were people that took the time to understand production and understand where they fit and how to make things better. And thinking people are stupid going into a meeting before you've met them is just kind of makes you a shitty person, so don't do that.
So business books, they serve a purpose. It's, I think, great to read them and educate yourself, but it's also, I think, more important to make up your own mind and to think about whether what's in that book is good, right, wrong, whether it's relevant here, relevant there. I think if you just take everything as gospel from business books, then you turn into like a stock photo creative idea guy that can't make up his own mind and just goes through the formula of everything you've ever read. So I think it's just a combination of educating, but also being your own person and making your own decisions about the content.
Yeah. Yeah, Peter's book is an exception to this rule. Understand the system is something I was talking about. I kind of jumped the gun a little bit, but I think it's about kind of knowing how the business works that you're going into, even if you're a creative, allows you to accomplish a lot more than if you don't. Knowing how production works or knowing what a client's everyday business is, this is what allows you to do cool shit because you can go in and satisfy what a client wants and then go above that and figure out whatever it is that you want to accomplish and make interesting or fun things or just something that you wanted to make.
Let's just look at this for a minute. Very awkward quiver. So ask for forgiveness without permission. I think, once you understand the system, once you understand the rules, it's important to break them from time to time. It's important to not take all advice or all rules as this is how it has to happen. One of the things that, Alex? So one of the things that we did that broke the rules was the strategy team that Joey talked about earlier. When we were in school, we just happened to be assigned the same projects in almost every class all the time. And some would call it fate, some would call it destiny, some would call it true love. It's probably all three of those things.
Yeah.
But we decided near the end of school, we were going to try and go for it as a team. We didn't know what that meant. Strategy teams didn't exist and kind of still aren't really a thing. Our directors...
So we are a unicorn is what we're trying to say.
Our directors and writers do it, and it makes a lot of sense, but we decided to try it. It was stupid. It was the bottom of the recession. It wasn't a smart idea, but somehow, I think because probably Joey, I'm not really that personable or likable, but Joey, and Ellen will attest to this, does a lot of the talking, but I think somehow we were able to do it, and if we had listened to people, we wouldn't have done it. It wasn't something that people were like, yeah, that's a good idea.
We asked people at the school and they're like, no, don't.
Yeah.
You should not go to there.
No. But all this to say, if you want to do something, if you know, even though it's against the rules, think about it first, but then if it makes sense still, break the rules.
Be generous with your time. This kind of bleeds into the next section, but I mean, be generous with your time and giving people the opportunity. Once you're in the field for 2 years or 3 years, people are going to start coming to you and asking you for advice or just to learn about whatever place you're working or whatever it is, and kind of giving them the time of day feels good, but it's also important because karma's a real thing. It's real in the world. And And if you were in the same position, you would want someone to give you time. So
Yeah, and it's not always about a lot of time. It's like respond to an email. I mean, there are a lot of times when, I think at school, when I would shoot emails to people and you just don't hear anything, and it's really shitty. And it's super easy to, I say this as someone who like just spends too much time writing emails, like the single email. I delete tons of drafts and it's a whole thing. But it's really easy to respond to an email. It's really easy to just, give a little bit of time. And it's super important. The next one is on enjoying the ride. We have lives outside of work. Let's enjoy them. Let's find that balance. The power of slow. So this one blends between having a job and getting ahead and also your real life. First of all, the power of slow thinking. I think we're always so pressured to do things quickly, and we have clients who are like, this is a 6-week project, and they say, okay, we have 3 weeks. I'm like, oh, okay, and so we'll do it, but there's real power to this idea of slow thinking and this idea of taking your time and this idea of just letting things marinate. And I think, getting ahead when you're on the job, you come up with the most profound things when you're not trying to. Like shower thoughts, for instance, is something, and we had an instance we were doing creative brainstorming, and I do it a lot since I'm here. I do it a lot over email, and I got an email, a question for different brainstorming things. I went to the bathroom. I came up with an idea, so I came back and I wrote an idea down and sent it. They're like, oh, that's great. And then I had to go to the bathroom again, like 30 minutes later. So I had another idea. So I'm back and wrote it. And it happened like 3 or 4 times. And I was like, God, that's my place, the bathroom. But it's because I wasn't trying, right? And it's just let it happen in the ether behind you and be slow about it and just let it happen. And the other, I think, if you do that, if you let time expand, basically, you enjoy life more. I guess the whole stop and smell the flowers thing makes sense.
sure, flowers, whatever. I think having meals with people is really important. It's not news, but I think the tip here is to use breakfast. When you start going and you have a job, a full-time gig, and you wake up in the morning, you fall into your routines really easily, and by the time you're finished work, you don't want to go meet with someone every single day or to maintain relationships, and breakfast is just a great way to do it. And you start the day in a lot better mood by the time you get into the office, and you can maintain your friendships and whatever. It's something that's so stupid that I feel dumb talking about it, but schedule breakfast, you'll be better for it.
Be more than your job. This has kind of come through, I think, in several of the ones that we've talked about, but it's important to invest in yourself and invest in who you are, whether that's having a family or going to shows and concerts or whatever it is. Don't spend all your time at work. You're going to be an awful employee if you do that in the first place, but
Don't be the person at the party talking about advertising.
your life is going to suck. You get a downward spiral, and you're not going to enjoy yourself.
Yeah, no one on their deathbed says, I wish I talked more about advertising.
Yeah. And I also think, go back real quick. This is also about saying no, I think. You don't want to be the guy that says no all the time or the guy that can't be counted on, but I think you want to be, or lady that can't be counted on, but you want to,
Set boundaries.
set your own boundaries and stick to them. And do your work, be awesome at your job, whatever that means, but also don't overdo yourself.
And the last one is the power of awkwardness. I think awkwardness is a tool that we try and use a lot. This has made its impact, I think. But it's, whether you're a planner or a creative, using awkwardness in meetings is powerful because it makes people uncomfortable and want to break out of it, and good things can happen.
Yeah, so that's Ben and Joey. And with that, awkwardness and motion, good work.
Yeah.
With that, we ordered pizza for the school again. So pizza is waiting for us at the school. But we're done. So, do you have any questions or any things for us, or was this good? You guys like this? Do you have any questions for us or anything like that? Or
Are you doing a Q&A at,
we're doing a Q&A at school, yeah.
Okay.
Also, so should we just leave it there?
Well, because there are other than residents
Okay.
as well, so if somebody wants to ask a question, please go right ahead.
Yeah, if anybody's got a query. Okay,
Is all your work B2C companies, or do you do any work for B2B companies as well?
most of our work is definitely B2C, business to consumer, but we do sometimes have projects that are businesses helping talk to other businesses. We work with a lot of media companies that need to appeal to the advertising community, and we help there. We work with BuzzFeed, for example, on that. We work with Google on that. We've worked with Time Inc. Tumblr is a big client of ours on that. But mostly business to consumer. We're finding a bigger, business to business clients are more and more interested in behaving more like a consumer-driven organization. So we're starting to do a little bit more of that.
So as a team, what problems are you guys most interested in solving in the future?
Well, I think it's interesting you say that. I mean, we are creative problem solvers, but I don't think we approach our work as like, what is the problem to be solved? I think we're very kind of optimistic about what is possible. So when I think about the future, I don't think about what do we want to solve. I kind of think about what do we want to create and what do we want to make. But I'll tell you that one thing that we care a lot about is being embedded with our organizations, with our clients, being closer to them, and that's one opportunity we see on the client side is like becoming legitimate partners and hanging with them. I think I don't know. Anything else? Problems we want to solve in the future?
I mean, I think a lot of the most fun problems we get to work on are further future-oriented, right? Things that are 10-year pipelines where, we work on the connected car and we've done a few projects where it's, 2025, we need to start developing our pipeline now because the production cycle for vehicles is, 5 years long. So how are we gonna, make the best vehicle in 2025? And so you really have to start to get uncomfortable in those situations, right? Like if you were picked up right now and dropped in 2025, the situation would be awkward. You would probably be uncomfortable going into certain places. And so making clients uncomfortable and being able to do interesting things that are way far future oriented is a lot of fun.
Yeah, we do nerd out about that sort of stuff big time, like driverless car, connected home, drones, wearables. The work we did for Uniqlo was so cool because it was a product development project, and it was what's the future of the apparel experience, what's the future of retail, like super far out. From a more practical level, those are the sort of the challenges we're faced with. Yeah.
A lot of people want to start their own businesses. Could you talk about advice for that, or stress you had, and did you find a pile of gold and you were like, what do I do? Like, how do you go from day job to owning your own business?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to say this without getting myself in trouble because when I was at Red Scout, I knew I wanted to leave really early on. So I had this percolating, and I met Joey and so on while I was there, we managed to start the company. They were with me from day one. We were in a little tiny office space on Lafayette, and we had a client, we had a team. We were able to afford a couple computers, and that's really it. And we never put a penny. I never put a penny of investment into the company ever. It was the fee from the client work that continued to fuel us, and it sustained us. My point is, it's actually easier than it seems to start a business on the level you're asking, on a budgetary level, right? Like, if you have the clients and the space and the time.
In a service-oriented industry.
In a service, which I think we all are, I think, but the bigger question is around entrepreneurialism. And how many people here want to start their own business? So when I went to grad school and someone asked that same question, maybe 2 people rose their hand. The spirit of invention and entrepreneurialism is obviously all the rage. It's very easy to create your own business, like I just said, but it's super competitive. I mean, it's because everybody's doing it. And we look at startups all the time, and we've seen the same idea in millions of incarnations. And so that it's sort of becoming cliche to be like, I have a business idea that I'm creating. And it's what makes those ideas stand out are who's supporting you behind it. Those are the kind of the harder things, I think. It's like, who's supporting you behind it? Is the idea truly unique? Is it necessary? Because it could be unique, but completely unnecessary. We're in the innovation business, and we don't consider a good idea unique. It doesn't have to be unique to be good and necessary in the world. It just has to be first and loved by people. So I don't know. I am obviously an entrepreneur, and I'm involved in a lot of different startups. But I would be really mindful and strategic and cautious about this thing called entrepreneurship. I would also ask you: are you trying to solve? What are you solving for? Are you solving for control and power? Do you not want a boss? Do you want something that you want to create? I think those are important questions to ask before you start a business. Because if you don't want a boss, and that's the reason you're starting a business, I don't know, there's another way to do it, or there's another way to solve for that, or maybe you haven't found the right boss. If you're starting a business because you have something that no one else has, that's a different story. Does that help? Is that interesting?
Since we're gonna do the Q&A back there as well,
Okay.
I don't know what time you ordered the pizza.
Yeah.
But I think we should just say thank you and then
Sure.
leave the rest of it back.